The Stellar Alliance, a union of 11 advanced species, had fought the aggressive Meridian Collective for 15 years with no end in sight. The battle for Outpost Epsilon reached its 23rd day as casualties mounted on both sides. Commander Excel of the Alliance reluctantly activated the emergency beacon, a call for aid to the newest spacefaring race in the galaxy. Humans had only achieved faster-than-light travel 28 years ago, yet rumors of their unique approach to conflict had spread. Alliance leadership debated intensely as the signal was sent. "They are untested," warned Admiral Vorin. "They are also our last hope," replied Excel, watching as another Alliance cruiser erupted into flames against the observation window. Commander Excel turned away from the viewport, his 4 eyes blinking in sequential distress. The command center of Epsilon Station buzzed with frantic activity as tactical officers from 7 different species coordinated the increasingly desperate defense efforts. Holographic displays showed the Meridian forces advancing methodically toward the station's core defensive ring. "Casualties on the southwestern quadrant have exceeded 70%, Commander," reported Lieutenant Nice, her feathered crest flattened against her skull in distress. "Shield integrity failing at junctions 8 through 14. Zeld's scaled hands tightened around the command rail. "Divert power from the residential sectors. Evacuate civilians to the central shelters." Admiral Vorin, a towering figure whose crystalline exoskeleton glinted under the emergency lighting, approached with deliberate steps. "The Council is requesting an update on your decision to contact the humans," he said, voice resonating from multiple speech organs. "Most representatives believe this violates protocol. Humans have not been validated for major conflict engagement. The protocols have failed us for 15 years. Admiral," Cell replied sharply. "Look around you. We follow the same tactics, deploy the same technologies, and achieve the same results. Defeat after costly defeat." A thunderous impact rocked the station, sending several officers tumbling to the deck. Damage reports flooded the communication channels as automated systems struggled to compensate. "Another breach in Sector 7, called out a monitoring officer. "Medical teams responding, but resources are stretched beyond capacity." Zeld straightened his commander's mantle and faced Vorin directly. "I take full responsibility for contacting Earth. Their understanding of warfare may be primitive by our standards, but they approach conflict differently. They think unpredictably. Unpredictability leads to chaos," Vorin countered. "The Alliance military doctrine has been refined over 10,000 years, and the Meridians have spent 8,000 years learning to counter it," Cell said, gesturing toward the tactical display where another Alliance Defender squadron blinked out of existence. "We need something the Meridians haven't already calculated." The communication officer's voice cut through their argument. "Commander, we're receiving a response from Earth Command. They've acknowledged our request," and the officer paused, checking the translation. "They say they're dispatching a response fleet immediately. Estimated arrival 14 hours. For the first time in months, Cell felt a flicker of hope. "Now we just need to survive until they get here." "If they even help at all," Vorin muttered. "What can 12 human ships possibly contribute that our combined fleets cannot?" Zell had no answer, only a desperate gamble based on fragments of information about humanity's warlike past. "We're about to find out." Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force received the distress signal during routine patrol of the Arcturus sector. Her vessel, the Intrepid, was modest compared to the massive Alliance warships, but what it lacked in size it made up for in innovation. Chen assembled her diverse team. Strategic Officer Kamari with his background in ancient Earth military history, Dr. Powell, whose research on Meridian physiology had been dismissed by Alliance scientists, and Lieutenant Santos, whose Special Tactics Unit had been specially trained for space combat. "The Alliance expects advisors," Chen told her crew as they plotted their course. "We're going to give them something they've never seen before." The skeptical Alliance representatives could never have predicted what 12 human ships would accomplish. Captain Chen studied the holographic projection of Outpost Epsilon, noting the positioning of Alliance and Meridian forces with a practiced eye. The tactical room of the Intrepid hummed with quiet efficiency as her senior officers analyzed the data streaming in from long-range sensors. "They're following textbook formations," Officer Kamari observed, his dark fingers tracing patterns in the holographic display. "The Alliance uses the same defensive configurations they've employed for centuries. No wonder the Meridians can predict their every move." Dr. Powell nodded, adjusting her glasses as she reviewed biological data. "The Alliance has consistently ignored my research on Meridian sensory weaknesses. Their central nervous system has specific vulnerabilities to certain electromagnetic frequencies, could be the key to disrupting their coordination. Command confirms we'll rendezvous with 11 other Earth vessels at the jump point," Lieutenant Santos reported, looking up from her console. "All special tactics teams are prepped and ready. The new stealth systems are online and untested against Meridian detection capabilities." Chen paced the circumference of the holotable, mentally calculating variables and possibilities. "What's the status of Project Chimera?" Santos exchanged glances with Kamari before responding. "The combat algorithms are loaded and running final simulations. Success rate against Meridian response patterns is now at 87%. "Not high enough," Chen said firmly. "I want 95 before deployment." The ship's AI, Athena, materialized as a translucent blue figure beside the tactical display. "Captain, I've completed analysis of the Alliance distress signal. Reading between the lines, their situation is more desperate than they're officially acknowledging. Estimated time to total defensive failure is approximately 18 hours. Chen stopped pacing. "And our arrival time?" 14 hours, 17 minutes at current FTL configuration, Athena replied. "Push the engines to 110%, Chen ordered. "I want boots on that station in 13 hours. Chief Engineer Rodriguez's voice came through the comm system. "Captain, sustained operation above 100% will strain the containment fields. We could lose maneuverability when we arrive." "Noted, Chief. Do it anyway," Chen said without hesitation. "Better to arrive with fewer options than to arrive too late." As the Intrepid's engines hummed at a higher pitch, Chen addressed her senior staff. "The Alliance has been fighting this war the same way for 15 years. They keep expecting different results from identical strategies. Humanity may be new to interstellar conflict, but warfare—" She shook her head. "That's something we know better than anyone in the galaxy." The human fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the battlefield, their arrival barely noticed amidst the chaos. Alliance commanders arranged a hasty briefing, expecting to educate these newcomers on proper space warfare. Instead, they found themselves stunned into silence as Captain Chen and her team dissected the tactical situation with precision. "Your formations are predictable," noted Officer Kamari, indicating patterns the Alliance had never recognized. "And you've ignored crucial weaknesses in Meridian sensory biology," added Dr. Powell, pointing to data the Alliance had overlooked. When Chen requested temporary command authority over a fraction of Alliance forces, Commander Excel faced the most difficult decision of his career. The battle clock showed another Alliance defeat was hours away. "Permission granted," he finally said. "Show us what humans can do." The 12 human vessels materialized at the edge of the Epsilon system, their sleek hulls reflecting distant starlight. Despite arriving earlier than predicted, they entered a battlefield in disarray. 3 Alliance dreadnoughts drifted in flames while Meridian forces methodically dismantled the station's outer defenses. On Epsilon's command deck, emergency klaxons blared as Commander Excel struggled to coordinate the fragmented defense. "Unknown vessels detected at system edge," reported a sensor officer. "Signatures match Earth Defense Force configurations." "They actually came," Admiral Voran remarked, surprise evident in his resonant voice. "Direct them to Defensive Quadrant 8. They can reinforce our southern flank." Before Excel could relay the orders, the comm system chimed with an incoming transmission. Captain Chen's image appeared on the main screen, her expression calm despite the chaos surrounding her. "Commander Excel, this is Captain Chen of the EDF Intrepid. Request immediate strategic briefing." We're prepared to engage." 30 minutes later, the Alliance command staff watched in growing disbelief as the human team systematically deconstructed their entire strategic approach. Officer Kamari stood before the tactical display, highlighting movement patterns with precise gestures. "You've been using the same defensive configurations for the entire conflict," he explained, tracking formation pathways. "The Meridians have mapped every possible response in your tactical doctrine. Look here." He pointed to a specific maneuver. "Every time they execute this pincer movement, you counter with the same sweeping response. They're predicting you." Dr. Powell stepped forward next, displaying biological scans of meridian physiology. Their neural network relies on synchronized communication across specific frequency bands. Disrupt those frequencies, and their coordination fractures. Admiral Voron's crystalline form stiffened. "The Alliance has studied meridian biology for decades. If such vulnerabilities existed, we would have discovered them." "With respect, Admiral," Powell replied firmly, "your researchers were looking for weaknesses according to your understanding of biology. Humans evolved as predators with different perceptual frameworks." Captain Chen waited until her team finished their assessment before making her unprecedented request. "Commander Excel, we need tactical control of a portion of your fleet, specifically these 10 vessels." She highlighted several ships on the display. "We also need authorization to deploy special tactics teams into Meridian space." The Alliance officers erupted in objections, surrendering command to humans. "Unthinkable." Cell raised his hand for silence, studying the battle timer. Alliance models projected total defeat within 4 hours. "What can you accomplish with these resources, Captain Chen?" he asked quietly. Chen's eyes met his with unwavering confidence. "Victory, Commander. In 3 hours or less." At precisely 700 Galactic Standard Time, the human plan launched into action. Lieutenant Santos deployed stealth insertion teams to key Meridian command ships, a tactic considered impossible against their security systems. Dr. Powell activated specially calibrated electromagnetic pulses designed to affect Meridian neural networks. Most confusing to Alliance observers, Officer Kamari directed seemingly random movements, feints, false retreats, and scattered drone deployments that appeared to have no purpose. "Chaos is a ladder," explained Chen to a bewildered Commander Excel. "We're climbing while they're falling." By 800, the previously orderly battlefield had transformed into what the Alliance officers viewed as disaster, but what the humans recognized as opportunity. The chrono markers on Epsilon Station's command center clicked to 700 as Captain Chen took her position at the tactical console. Alliance officers watched with barely concealed skepticism as she opened a secure channel to the human vessels. "All ships, commence Operation Thunderstrike. Phase 1 begins now." Commander Excel observed the monitors with growing concern. The human ships broke formation almost immediately, scattering in what appeared to be random directions. "Captain Chen, your vessels are exposing their flanks. The Meridian targeting systems will." "Trust the process, Commander," Chen replied without taking her eyes off the display. "Lieutenant Santos, status of insertion teams." Santos' voice came through the comms, punctuated by the sound of equipment being prepped. "Teams Alpha through Echo launching now, Captain. Stealth systems engage." On auxiliary screens, Cell watched in astonishment as small, matte black shuttles detached from the human vessels and accelerated toward the Meridian flagship and 4 command cruisers. Alliance intelligence had deemed Meridian ships impenetrable to boarding actions due to their advanced detection systems. "Those shuttles will be vaporized the moment they enter Meridian sensor range," Admiral Voron stated flatly. Officer Kamari smiled slightly. "That would be true if we were using conventional stealth technology. Our systems don't mask energy signatures, they mimic them." To Meridian sensors, those shuttles read as debris from previous engagements. Meanwhile, Dr. Powell worked at a specialized console, surrounded by puzzled Alliance scientists. Initiating neural disruption sequence, she announced, activating a series of precisely calibrated electromagnetic pulses that rippled outward from modified human drones. The effects weren't immediately visible, but within minutes, subtle changes appeared in Meridian fleet movements. Ships that had maintained perfect synchronization began to show slight variations in formation integrity. "What's happening to them?" asked an Alliance tactical officer. "We're creating sensory confusion," Powell explained. Meridians share a partial hive consciousness that relies on precise neural synchronization. These pulses aren't strong enough to disable them, but they introduce microsecond delays in their collective decision-making. While this occurred, Officer Kamari orchestrated what Alliance officers could only describe as tactical madness. Human vessels executed abrupt course changes, deployed hundreds of miniature drones in scattered patterns, and fired targeting systems at empty space. "Your ships are wasting energy and ammunition," Vorin observed critically as human vessels launched missiles that detonated without hitting targets. Chen turned to face the Alliance leadership. "We're not trying to destroy their ships yet, Admiral. We're destroying their certainty." The tactical display showed the Meridian fleet beginning to adjust to the unusual human movements, diverting resources to track the scattered drone signatures and shifting formations to counter the apparently erratic human maneuvers. "They think we're being random," Chen explained, pointing to Meridian response patterns. "But every move we make is precise. We're creating a targeting algorithm nightmare. Too many variables, too many potential threats. They can't determine which movements are genuine attacks and which are feints." By 7:45, the orderly battle lines that had characterized the conflict for years had dissolved into what looked like chaos to untrained eyes. Alliance commanders watched in growing alarm as their carefully positioned defensive grid was pulled apart by human ships that refused to stay in formation. "This isn't warfare," an Alliance general protested. "This is madness." Officer Kamari looked up from his console with a grim smile. "This is human warfare, General. And madness is precisely the point." As the battle clock struck 800, the battlefield shifted dramatically. The Meridian fleet, known for its hive-mind coordination, began to show signs of confusion. Their perfectly synchronized movements became erratic as Santos' teams disrupted key communication nodes. Alliance officers watched in amazement as the humans executed what Captain Chen called asymmetric warfare, targeting weak points rather than meeting strength with strength. Officer Kamari's decoy drones had successfully drawn Meridian fire away from the real targets, while Dr. Powell's team deployed a frequency that disrupted the Meridian's group consciousness. "They've spent centuries perfecting formation combat," Chen explained to Commander Excel. "We spent millennia learning how to break formations." By 8:45, 3 major Meridian command ships had gone silent, and for the first time in 15 years, the Alliance detected weakness in their enemy. The command center chronometer flashed 800 as Captain Chen studied the tactical display with intense focus. Epsilon Station's observation deck had filled with Alliance officers drawn by rumors of the strange human tactics. What had begun as skepticism was slowly transforming into cautious hope as the battle's momentum visibly shifted. "Lieutenant Santos, report on insertion teams," Chen requested, her voice calm despite the chaos unfolding across multiple screens. Santos' reply came through with the sound of alarms in the background. "Alpha and Bravo teams have reached primary targets. Communication nodes on the Meridian flagship compromised. Charlie team encountering resistance but advancing. Delta and Echo in position and awaiting signal." On the main display, the Meridian fleet's movements had changed. Their previously perfect geometric formations were developing gaps and inconsistencies. Ships that had moved in perfect unison now showed slight delays in response time. "It's working," Dr. Powell announced, monitoring neural pattern data on her specialized equipment. "The disruption frequency is causing cascading errors in their hive communication. Their neural networks can't synchronize properly." An Alliance scientist approached Powell's station, mandibles clicking in agitation. "How did you isolate this frequency?" "Our researchers tested the entire spectrum. You tested what you thought was the entire spectrum, Powell corrected gently. Humans perceive and process sensory information differently. We found gaps in your research methodology. Across the battlefield, Officer Kamari's strategy was bearing fruit. The hundreds of decoy drones deployed earlier had begun executing their programmed behaviors, creating heat signatures and communication patterns that mimicked actual ships. Meridian targeting systems, already compromised by neural disruption, were allocating precious resources to track and counter these phantom threats. They're firing on empty space, an Alliance tactical officer noted with disbelief as a Meridian destroyer unleashed a barrage of energy weapons at a cluster of tiny drones. Every shot they waste on our decoys is one not aimed at your ships, Kamari explained. And every calculation their targeting computers make trying to predict our movements drains processing power from their defense systems. Commander Excel approached Chen as the tactical situation continued to evolve. Your methods are unorthodox, Captain, but I cannot deny their effectiveness. Chen nodded. Classic human asymmetric warfare, Commander. When facing a technologically superior or numerically dominant opponent, you don't target their strengths, you exploit their assumptions. At 8:23, the first major breakthrough occurred. A Meridian command cruiser suddenly vented atmosphere from multiple decks, its engines powering down as emergency systems engage. Alliance officers cheered as the massive vessel drifted out of formation. Santos' Charlie team just took out their primary power regulation systems, Chen explained. The Meridians never expected physical infiltration. Their internal security protocols are designed to counter digital attacks, not human boarding parties. By 8:45, 2 more Meridian vessels had gone silent, their command structures compromised by the human infiltration teams. The Alliance fleet, following Kamari's unconventional positioning directives, had suffered minimal losses while maintaining constant pressure on the increasingly disorganized Meridian forces. Admiral Vorin approached the human command station, his crystalline form reflecting the tactical displays. In 15 years, we've never seen the Meridians retreat, he said quietly. Yet 3 of their command ships have broken formation and appear to be withdrawing. They're not retreating yet, Admiral, Chen replied, her eyes fixed on the display. They're regrouping. The real test comes next. The last hour of the battle witnessed what would later be called the Human Gambit. Captain Chen authorized deployment of their specialized weapon systems, highly adaptive combat algorithms that changed tactics faster than the Meridian defense systems could respond. Alliance ships, now following human coordination, executed maneuvers that no flight instructor would have approved, banking at impossible angles, using gravitational slingshots around debris, and engaging in point-blank confrontations. Dr. Powell's team broadcast a signal that triggered a survival instinct in Meridian biology, causing mass confusion in their ranks. At 9:23, the unthinkable happened. The Meridian flagship transmitted surrender protocols. By 1000, exactly 3 hours after human engagement, Alliance forces secured complete victory in a conflict that had previously seemed endless. As the battle entered its final hour, Captain Chen gathered her senior officers for a brief tactical update. The command center hummed with a new energy, the faintest stirring of hope after years of grinding defeat. The Meridians are regrouping their remaining forces around their flagship, Officer Kamari reported, highlighting the enemy movements on the tactical display. They're abandoning their standard formations in favor of a defensive shell configuration. Dr. Powell nodded. They're adapting to our disruption techniques. Their neural networks are establishing new synchronization patterns to compensate for the frequency interference. Then it's time for Project Chimera, Chen decided, meeting each officer's gaze. Athena, what's the current success probability? The ship's AI materialized beside the tactical display. Combat algorithm success rate now at 96%, Captain. Meridian adaptive responses are within predicted parameters. Chen turned to Commander Excel. Commander, we need your remaining vessels to execute a new series of maneuvers. The timing must be precise. Cell studied the proposed flight paths with widening eyes. These patterns bring vessels dangerously close to collision courses. Some of these turns exceed our ship's structural tolerances. Your ships are stronger than your pilots have been told, Chen replied. Alliance engineering always builds in safety margins. We need those margins now. After a moment's hesitation, Cell nodded. I'll give the orders personally. At 900 precisely, Project Chimera activated across the human fleet. Advanced combat algorithms developed from centuries of Earth warfare simulations took control of weapons targeting, threat assessment, and countermeasure deployment. Unlike traditional combat systems, these algorithms continuously evolved, learning from meridian responses and adapting faster than the enemy could counter. What am I seeing? Admiral Vorin asked, watching as both human and Alliance vessels began executing maneuvers that defied conventional space combat doctrine. Machine learning warfare, Chen explained. Your ships follow predetermined tactical doctrines. Ours create new doctrines every millisecond. The battlefield transformed as Alliance vessels, guided by human tactical officers, spiraled through debris fields that meridian targeting systems couldn't penetrate. Human ships executed micro-jumps, brief faster than light hops that allowed them to appear virtually anywhere around meridian vessels, firing from impossible angles before disappearing again. At 9:15, Dr. Powell initiated the final phase of their strategy. Deploying targeted binaural pulse now, she announced, activating a precisely calibrated broadcast that transmitted across all meridian communication channels. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Meridian vessels began powering down weapon systems, some drifting out of formation entirely. Others fired erratically, hitting their own ships. What did you do to them? Cell asked, watching the unprecedented sight of Meridian ships in disarray. We triggered their equivalent of a panic response, Powell explained. Their species evolved from herd creatures with a specific neural pattern that activates when the group is fractured. It's similar to what humans would call extreme anxiety, the inability to process threats clearly. At 9:23, the unthinkable happened. The Meridian flagship, a vessel that had led countless victories against the Alliance, transmitted on all frequencies. There, an Alliance communications officer stammered. They're requesting terms of surrender. Silence fell across the command center as the implications sank in. After 15 years of relentless conflict, after countless Alliance defeats and millions of casualties, the Meridians were surrendering, less than 3 hours after human forces had entered the battle. Captain Chen turned to Commander Excel. Your station. Your call, Commander. Excel stepped forward, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence as he processed the moment. This is Commander Excel of the Stellar Alliance. We accept your surrender. Stand down all weapons and prepare to receive boarding parties. The celebration across Alliance worlds was tempered with uneasy questions. Security Council meetings extended long into the night as leaders grappled with the implications. How had humans accomplished in 3 hours what the combined might of 11 advanced species couldn't achieve in 15 years? Commander Excel found Captain Chen in the observation deck, watching recovery operations. Your methods were unconventional, he noted. Chen smiled slightly. Humans had to learn warfare the hard way, by fighting ourselves for thousands of years before we reached the stars. We know conflict intimately because we've lived it. Her words sent a chill through Excel. The Alliance had always seen humanity's violent history as a mark of primitiveness. Now he wondered if it was instead a forge that had created something formidable. Alliance intelligence began compiling reports on Earth history, paying particular attention to something humans called guerrilla tactics. The celebrations on Epsilon Station continued well into the night cycle. Crews from 11 species mingled with the human teams, sharing drinks and swapping increasingly embellished accounts of the battle. Medical teams worked tirelessly, treating wounded from both sides as Alliance protocols dictated care for surrendered enemies. Away from the revelry, in the station's secure conference chamber, a very different gathering took place. The Alliance Security Council, hastily assembled via holographic projection, bombarded Commander Excel with questions he struggled to answer. How could primitives with barely 3 decades of FTL capability achieve what our combined fleets could not? Demanded Counselor Thrix, her insectoid form vibrating with agitation. The tactical data makes no logical sense, added Counselor Vreen, his gelatinous body pulsing with colored lights that indicated deep concern. These humans violated every principle of established combat doctrine. Admiral Vorin, who had witnessed the battle firsthand, stood rigid before the council. That, counselors, appears to be precisely why they succeeded. The Meridians had mapped our doctrines completely. The humans were unpredictable. Unpredictability is not a military virtue, countered Counselor Thrix. It is a path to chaos. Vorin's crystalline form refracted light as he shifted uncomfortably, and yet the results speak for themselves. Commander Excel found Captain Chen several hours later, standing alone on the observation deck. Beyond the transparent barriers, Alliance and human ships conducted joint recovery operations, collecting debris and rescuing survivors from damaged vessels. Your people celebrate differently than mine, Cell observed, moving to stand beside her, more expressively. Chen smiled slightly. We've had practice, both with celebration and with war. That's what troubles the Council, Cell admitted. Your species achieved in 3 hours what we couldn't in 15 years. The question being asked in every government hall across the Alliance is, how? Chen turned from the viewport to face him directly. You've studied our history since we made contact, yes. Zell's eyes blinked in affirmation. Your violent tendencies were considered evidence of your evolutionary immaturity. What you call violent tendencies we call survival, Chen replied evenly. Humans fought each other for resources, for territory, for ideology, for thousands of years before we reached the stars. Your species developed interstellar travel before you developed gunpowder. We did it in reverse. She gestured toward the battlefield beyond. The Meridians fought according to patterns they perfected over centuries. So did the Alliance. But humans, we've been breaking patterns, adapting tactics and finding weaknesses in superior forces throughout our entire history. Phil considered her words carefully. The Alliance has always viewed humanity's warlike past as your greatest flaw. Perhaps, Chen acknowledged with a slight nod. But today, it was our greatest strength. As Chen returned to her ship, Cell received a priority communication from Alliance intelligence. They were requesting all available information on Earth's military history, with particular emphasis on something called asymmetric warfare, and historical figures named Sun Tzu, Genghis Khan, and Napoleon Bonaparte. For the first time in his long career, Commander Excel felt a sensation he couldn't immediately identify. After reflection, he recognized it as both hope and unease, hope for the war's end, and unease about the allies who had made it possible. 6 months after the Battle of Epsilon, the galaxy entered a new era. The Meridian Collective, under reformist leadership, opened peace talks with both the Alliance and Earth independently. Captain Chen became the first human appointed to the Alliance Strategic Command, while human military advisors were requested across Alliance space. Most telling was the establishment of the Joint Military Academy on Earth's moon, where officers from all species trained together using human tactical frameworks. Commander Excel, now Admiral Excel, often reflected on that decisive day. The greatest miscalculation in Alliance history, he wrote in his personal logs, was dismissing humans as newcomers with nothing to teach us. In 3 hours, they showed us that sometimes the oldest lessons are the most powerful. They didn't just win a battle. They revolutionized our understanding of conflict itself. What remains to be seen is whether we've gained a powerful ally or simply haven't recognized a future adversary. As human ships integrated into Alliance fleets, the galaxy watched with hopeful caution, wondering what other surprises Earth might bring to the stars. The Galactic Summit convened in Earth's orbital diplomatic station, a symbolic location that would have been unthinkable a year earlier. Representatives from all Alliance species gathered alongside a delegation from the reformed Meridian Collective, their once fearsome appearance now tempered by the humility of defeat. Admiral Excel, resplendent in his new ceremonial armor, stood at the observation window, watching the blue-green planet rotating below. Earth, a world that had reshaped the galaxy's balance of power in less than a day. "It's smaller than I imagined," came a familiar voice behind him. Cell turned to find Captain Chen, now Strategic Commander Chen, approaching in her formal Earth Defense Force uniform. "Many significant things begin small," he replied. "The Concordat Treaty is ready for final signatures." Together, they entered the Grand Chamber where representatives from 12 species, 11 Alliance members and humanity, waited to formalize the peace that had eluded them for 15 years. The Meridian Prime Delegate, a tall figure with iridescent scales, addressed the assembly. "For generations, we believed military perfection lay in predictability, in formations executed with mathematical precision. We were wrong. The humans taught all of us, that adaptation is the true heart of survival." After the formal signing, Admiral Vorin approached Chen at the reception. His crystalline form had been modified with a small embedded medal, the Alliance's highest honor for military service. "The Joint Military Academy has requested an additional 30 human instructors," he said without preamble. "Our cadets seem particularly interested in something called asymmetric warfare and guerrilla tactics." Chen smiled slightly. "I'll forward the request to Earth Command." "There is concern among some council members," Vorin added, his tone lowering, "about sharing too much military knowledge with a species that proved so adept at warfare." "The same concern exists on Earth," Chen admitted, "about allying too closely with species who might one day see us as a threat rather than an asset." Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Dr. Powell, now heading the newly established Xenobiology Exchange Program. "The Meridian delegates have agreed to share their full neural mapping data," she reported excitedly. "Their medical technology, combined with our understanding of neurological patterns, could revolutionize treatment for traumatic brain injuries across all species." As the gathering continued, Admiral Excel found himself drawn to a holographic display showing the fleet formations from the Battle of Epsilon. 6 months later, it still defied conventional analysis how thoroughly the human tactics had unraveled 15 years of stalemate. "We were fortunate you answered our call," Cell said quietly when Chen joined him at the display. "Fortunate for all of us," she replied. "Isolated species rarely survive the universe's challenges. Together, we're stronger." As Earth rotated below them, visible through the station's vast windows, Cell contemplated the strange twist of fate that had led the Alliance to call upon these newcomers in desperation. Humans had entered the galactic community as curious oddities, primitive, emotional, unpredictable. Now they stood as respected allies, their violent history recontextualized as a crucible that had forged unique strengths. The question that haunted Cell's private thoughts, whether humanity would ultimately prove ally or adversary, remained unanswered. But watching Chen coordinate effortlessly between various species delegates, he allowed himself to hope that perhaps the answer was neither. Perhaps humans were simply the catalyst the galaxy needed to evolve beyond its ancient limitations.